Life moves fast, and leadership moves even faster. But if we don't learn to pause, the very vision that we're pursuing will eventually outrun us. Today, I'm glad you're here as we begin a vital new journey together. For the next few weeks, we walk through a series of conversations titled The Sabbath of the Soul. Well, welcome to Motivating Moments, everyone. I am Pastor Steve Evans, your guide for this conversation, where every week we take a few minutes to refocus, recharge, and move forward with purpose. Listen, life moves quickly, we know that, and leadership can be demanding, and it's easy to drift into the routine without even realizing. That's why these moments exist, to provide you and I some practical encouragement and perspective that's going to help us stay intentional in the middle of real life. So, wherever you're listening today, whatever you've got going on, whether you're driving to work, maybe you're taking a walk, or you're just simply needing a few minutes to reset, get ready for today's motivating moment as we jump into this series together. Hey, well, if you're watching today's episode on YouTube, then you realize that our surroundings for this recording are very different than what you're accustomed to seeing. I'm here today in the sanctuary of Faith Assembly Church, where for the last decade or so, Pastor Lisa and I have spent so much of our time and given so much of our energy. Even times when we're not physically present in this space, we are often found giving our attention and our energy to the propulsion of a mission and the pursuit of a vision that is so much bigger than we are. And one thing that we could readily attest to you is that in specific seasons through that time, we can tell you firsthand that the grind is real and that the burden is sometimes heavy, and it is easy to get depleted. In my 25 years of pastoral ministry, I have discovered a fundamental truth, and that is this: fatigue is real, and fatigue impacts your perspective, and your perspective impacts everything you do. When you're physically defeated, your perspective will narrow. You stop seeing possibilities and you start only seeing the problems. You stop seeing people as souls to be loved and you start seeing them as interruptions to be managed. Every challenge feels like a problem instead of an opportunity. The mountain that looked like such an exciting challenge on Monday morning, now on Friday afternoon just looks like an insurmountable wall. And the issue is that the mountain didn't grow. Your calling didn't change, but your lens got smudged. And physical exhaustion is that smudge. It acts like a filter that dims all the light, magnifies the shadows, and if you feel like your vision is failing, you may just have a dirty lens. Listen, in high-level leadership, I'm guilty myself. We often rely on adrenaline to get us through the big moments. But there's a hidden moment, there's a hidden cost to this that we'll call the adrenaline tax. And that is that when we are chronically fatigued, our natural steady state energy is gone, and we find that we can no longer just get excited about the routine or the foundational things that'll help us along the way in achieving our long-term vision. And because of that fatigue, we often unconsciously begin looking for something exciting, something pressing, or even sometimes things that are potentially hazardous just to stimulate us and keep us going. And that is a direct product of fatigue. We become crisis junkies. Because a crisis is the only surge of energy that's strong enough to override our exhaustion. And we may find ourselves drawn to the urgent because The important no longer feels stimulating. We need something urgent. We need to be in a crisis in order to be motivated to move forward. And if you find that you're only feeling alive or motivated when there's a fire to put out or a high stakes problem to solve, it may be a sign that you aren't actually being more productive. It may mean that you're just simply too tired to operate without a good shot of adrenaline. So I really want to invite you and encourage you to check yourself on that and see, is that the only way I can really get out of my chair or get excited about something, is if I have a strong shot of adrenaline. And if that's the case, I can tell you, after 2.5 decades in this arena, I've realized that we often talk about self-care as if it's some kind of luxury for the weekend. And I want to reframe that. As a matter of fact, I think we could almost scrap the terminology of self-care and call it what it actually is. What we're actually talking about today isn't self-care. What we're actually talking about in a biblical sense is stewardship. In my case, I'm the steward of a 25-year legacy of ministry. I've managed budgets, I've built teams, navigated complex transitions at Faith Assembly Church and several other places at this point in my life and ministry. But I've come to learn that the very first resource that I was entrusted was my own physical life, my breath, my heartbeat, my stamina. And what's true for me is true for you as well. And the outflow of that is that if you're a poor steward of the vessel, your own life, you will eventually distort the very mission that you're trying to protect. This is something that it took me a long time to learn, but I've seen the results in my own life and work rhythms over the years of the impact of overextension. So I want to invite you today to listen to the older, more wiser Steve, who has learned these valuable lessons. Listen, physical rest isn't an interruption to your mission. It's actually the required maintenance that keeps your lens of leadership clean, that keeps all those smudges that we talked about earlier out of your perspective. And I've experienced seasons where I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing, but because of the fatigue, I didn't have the visionary passion around the task. I know what it's like to need a crisis to get me motivated. It's like having the roadmap and knowing exactly where we're heading, but the engine won't turn over. And the engine won't turn over unless there's some kind of fire to put out or crisis to overcome, and then we can get things going. Listen, when you're physically exhausted, our brains just default to maintenance mode. We aren't creating anything, we're just surviving. And if you look at your God-given goals and you feel nothing but a heavy sense of duty or a lack of passion, there's a good chance that you've not lost your vision. You've just likely lost your margin. You're running, never able to catch up, never able to make any headway, and you're just tired. You're just in a hamster wheel. Listen, you don't always need a new dream. Sometimes you just need a long sleep. I want to encourage you in that if your sleep debt is high, maybe it's time to settle those accounts. To clear the fog and regain a healthy perspective, let me give you just a few specific turns in your daily habits that may help. In this age of constant and instant accessibility, sometimes we need a hard signal that the shift is over. So I want to challenge you with that, to choose a time, maybe 7:30, 8 p.m., 9 o'clock, whatever it is, where your phone goes on a charger in another room, and you stop the constant input and the constant access that keeps your mind racing even when your body is still. That's number one. Number two, I want to challenge you with what we'll call the margin audit. I want to challenge you to open your calendar, whether you keep a paper calendar or digital calendar, whatever it is. If every block is filled, you have no margin. Margin is where your second wind comes from. And if you have no white space on your calendar, then you have no room for fresh perspective. Number three, I want to challenge you with the sleep sanctity. Science calls sleep the cleaning cycle of your brain. And I want to challenge you to treat 7 to 8 hours of rest as a non-negotiable professional appointment on your calendar, because it is the foundation upon which your clarity and your passion is built. I promise you that your calling, your passion is so much more important than whatever Netflix series that you're binging on right now. Way more important than whatever you're seeing on TikTok. Exponentially more important than anything that you're seeing in the news or on Facebook. So get that rest. Hey, we're going to wrap things up here, but I want to challenge you with this concluding thought. Don't let culture convince you that your value is tied up in your exhaustion, because it's not. We sometimes wear tired like it's some kind of badge, but a tired leader is a reactive leader. And your greatest contribution to those that you lead isn't your hustle. It's your healthy, well-rested perspective, seeing clearly God's calling and God's direction for your life, your ministry, your organization, whatever it is. So rest today. Rest today so you can lead with clarity tomorrow. Hey, thank you for joining me for this motivating moment. And remember that the road ahead is long. So make sure that you are fueled for the journey. Hey, if this episode has been helpful for you, I want to ask you to please consider sharing it with someone. And if you haven't done so already, if you could help out with a rating and a review, that would go a long way in helping others find this conversation and experience the encouragement that it provides. And until next time, I'm Pastor Steve, inviting you to join us for the next episode as we dive into the next segment of rest that we're going to find, and that is our mental rest that we all so desperately need. So until next time, I'm Pastor Steve, encouraging you to stay motivated, my friends. Like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you next time.